Bonjour à toutes, bonjour à tous, soyez les bienvenus pour suivre ce record de l'heure. Alex Dowsett, d'ici quelques minutes, va tenter d'aller chercher la performance qui est détenue pour le moment par Juan Dennis, le coureur qui a marqué les esprits il y a quelques semaines de cela, en allant chercher ce nouveau record, 52 km 491 en une heure. C'était du côté de la Suisse, à Grange,
interest in the event, and these seats are expected to fill up here at the National Cycling Centre in the north of England in preparation for what could well be yet another historic day in the world of cycling, and a historic day for British cycling as well. As I was saying, the renewed vigour with which this record's been embraced has taken place really in the last few months. We take a look at coming up there. The first up to the plate was the 43-year-old veteran of the peloton, Jens Vogt. The NZ riding at the velodrome Suisse in Grenchen produced a new world record of 51.110 kilometres on the 18th of September last year. Just 42 days later, there was a new world mark. Tony Rominger's disciple, Matthias Brandl, going 51.852 kilometres. Also in Switzerland, Jack Boberich was the next to attempt the record, the Australian coming up short in Melbourne at the end of January. But compatriot Rohan Dennis of the BMC team cracked the record in Grenchen by over 600 metres on the 8th of February, 52.491 kilometres, the new mark. Since then, there have been a further 2 attempts, both failures. Thomas Dekker of the Netherlands missing out by just 270 metres in Mexico, and Sweden's Gustav Larsson failing here in Manchester on the 14th of March. So what will this crowd in Manchester witness today as Alex Dowsett looks to etch his name onto a list of cycling legends to have held this prestigious hour record mark? We're going to head off for a quick break now as the crowds continue to fill up at the Manchester Velodrome. Join us after the break as we continue our build-up to what Alex Dowsett hopes will be the perfect hour. Well, welcome back to the National Cycling Centre here in Manchester as we continue our build-up to Alex Dowsett's attempt at the hour record. The 26-year-old is here. He's going through his last preparations for the culmination of months of work, months that have included plenty of time in the wind tunnel.
What we're basically doing is we're simulating how it is on the track when he does the hour record. So we have the wind set to 53 kilometers an hour, for instance, and then we will measure when the wind is a very controlled speed. We will measure the force that the wind is imparting on Alex and the bike, and that's what we call the drag force. So that's what's slowing you down. So when you ride a bike, when Alex is riding around the velodrome, around 85% of what's slowing him down is drag, is the air particles, and the other 15% will be from the tyres. So what we're doing today is working on how we can reduce the impact, all the force that hits Alex, which is the drag force. So we're trying to work on ways of reducing the drag force, which therefore means that Alex actually does not have to produce so much power, or for the same power he can go faster. So if he was, say, riding at 400 watts, it would mean that if you can reduce the drag force by a few grams, he will do another lap or two laps within 1 hour. We look at different things. So the first time we were looking more at larger changes in position. And the other thing we're doing is it's not just about finding a position that's the fastest. We're trying to find a position that you can ride on the track and sustain for 1 hour and produce the power. So it's all about efficiency. You know, it's not just about going in the most aerodynamic position. It's being practical and finding a position where you can produce a good level of power and have a lowish drag, and also that you can sustain that for 1 hour. So, you know, there's sort of some tweaks with the position that means you can hold the line and be very, very consistent. It's a fantastic tool, the wind tunnel, but also you have to recognise, you have to understand that it's also not the real world, so you have to be careful and pragmatic about how you develop the testing to achieve something that actually gives you an end result, which is a better performance. And it's all about efficiency. It's about power production and drag reduction, not just one thing. See from the results that it's a good improvement, and this is a suit that actually Alex rode in the velodrome last week, and we also confirmed there that it was better, just to make sure. We like to make sure that everything stacks up in the real world, but it was a well worth exercise, because the thing that you get on the track is that you absolutely know whether there's any issues with the fit and the comfort. So for example, this one skin suit, we found that there was an issue with the sort of flexibility, so we've modified that for today, so hopefully we have the speed and also the comfort.
Thank you.
Well, they will certainly hope that everything from the aerodynamic side of things has been covered, but now the attention doesn't fall just on the bike, it falls on the man who's going to be sitting on board and his attempt on that record. The crowd continues to fill up here in Manchester in preparation for the start, which is now around 7 minutes away here at the National Cycling Centre. We managed to speak to Alex Dowsett, though, ahead of this attempt, and we're going to go and listen to that interview now and hear exactly how his preparation has been going, especially after he experienced setting it back after a collarbone break earlier in the year.
Honestly, Manchester were much more accommodating to the attempt than London. And I used to live in Manchester when I was with the under-23 Great Britain team. I've done like thousands and thousands of laps of that track, so that track's like a bit of a second home. It'll be quite special to be going for the hour record on the same track as Chris Boardman did. So it'll be quite something. I've got a lot of friends and family that are making the trip up to come see me, so I think it'll be a big event. It's a custom. They had to custom make it for the hour record attempt. It's effectively my Speed Max, but with the brakes and the gears taken off and track dropouts put on the back. I think the Speed Max is already more or less the fastest time trial bike there is available. In the time trial last week in Circuit de la Sarthe, there was 4 of them in the top 6. So it's already an extremely fast bike. When it comes to clothing, equipment, everything, I don't think anyone's got faster kit than I've got, which I guess puts a bit of pressure on me. But it's great that the sponsors they've so committed to the record, really. Mentally, it was very difficult getting back into the same routine, the same mentality I was in before. Before I broke my collarbone, I was more committed than I'd been to anything. I I was training so hard and everything was just going really well, and then I think to then break my collarbone, have all that taken away from me. I've never suffered, I guess, disappointment like that. I've broken bones before, but I guess before I haven't actually trained as hard as I know I can now, and that was to then put all that effort in and then to just lose it all in a split second, and then start from not scratch but start from a lesser level. I struggled to get going again, to motivate myself to get training. It wasn't easy, and then on top of that, we didn't actually know at the time if we were going to be reattempting the hour record. So in my mind, I didn't have anything to train for. So that was really difficult. But then as soon as the team said, okay, we've come far enough, we've learned so much, we were in such a good place, it's a shame to waste it, so we are going to reattempt the hour record as soon as possible. I've tried to avoid thinking about that as much as, like, how difficult it is going to be, as much as possible. I've tried not to listen to anyone telling me. I had a guy, I was training in the velodrome, and a guy came up to me and he said, oh, have you read O'Brien Boardman's book? I was like, no. He's like, it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. I was like, yeah, thanks. He's like, no, it's going to be really difficult. I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, and he just kept telling me how hard it was going to be. I ended up saying, look, wait, can you stop? Because I don't want to know. It's I know it's going to be hard. I mean, we are training at the moment to make the first half hour, 40 minutes as easy as possible, but I know in reality it's going to be brutal. I think my strategy for race day will be, we have to be really disciplined and strict in the first half an hour, even the first 40 minutes, because it can really, if you go out too quick or too hard, it can really fall to pieces. I'm very good at getting overexcited early on and kind of cooking myself and suffering on later on. But on a time trial, you can do that because you can sort of have a bit of a rest, click back a couple of gears, recover, and then go again. But because of the nature of this event, the relentlessness of it, there is like no rest anywhere. If you go over the edge, you don't come back. The idea of an attempt of a world record would be something that really resonated well amongst the haemophilia community. Just to go and to put yourself out there to do something that you shouldn't really be able to do, or to try something that maybe you haven't considered. And I thought that would be a big thing. So whether I break or don't break the hour record, I hope that just the fact that I've gone out there and tried it and attempted it, put myself on the line and attempted this will help a young haemophiliac decide to pick up a bike or go and join a swimming club.
Well, just 15 seconds until we get underway. Interesting words there from Alex Dowsett as he prepares to get going. I'm joined by former World Pursuit champion Tony Doyle. Just before we get underway here, Tony, what are Alex's chances in your opinion?
I think he's got a very good chance. I think the disappointment of having the broken collarbone, I think the disappointment and the setback of breaking his collarbone in January, I think in the long run that will actually motivate him, because he's seen Ronan Dennis, the Australian who rides for the BMC team, go out and set the record at 52.491 kilometres. He knows that's the record to beat. He beat Ronan Dennis in the Commonwealth Games. He knows he's got to go out there now. He's got to cover 210 laps within the hour.
It's a remarkable feat if he can achieve it. Silence in the Manchester Velodrome as we prepare to get underway here. He talked about the fact that he can get overexcited One hopes that he sticks to the plan and has a measured start here. So important, the opening 30 minutes, as he said. Alex Dowsett, in what he hopes will be his perfect hour, is underway. And Tony, I mean, how much pressure is piled on a rider there when you're waiting to be released from the gate?
I mean, it's a huge amount of pressure, but obviously, you know, for riders of the caliber of Alex, they're very experienced and they've been in this position lots of times. I mean, this rider has won stages in the Giro d'Italia when he won the time trial stage there. Over the sort of distance he's aiming to cover today. That time trial which he won in the Giro d'Italia, the distance was 54.8 kilometres. So he's also won the Commonwealth Games. So the tension and the adrenaline is going to be there, but it's how you manage, it's how you deal with that. And he's an experienced rider now, riding for one of the most successful professional teams, Movistar, in the world. So he's got a lot of support and a lot of backup, which is going to help him control his emotions, control his adrenaline.
So there we have the time check on the speed. Needs to get that up north of 53 kilometres, 54 kilometres, of course, will be what he's aiming for, 55 kilometres potentially. But as Alex Dowsett's spoken about, he's just looking for the record. He's not talking about distances. He's leaving that really to Bradley Wiggins, who'll be attempting this on the 7th of June at the Lee Valley Arena, where of course Alex Dowsett was originally supposed to be making his record attempt. So it'll be interesting to see, well, first of all, whether Alex Dowsett can manage to get the record here today, and then many eyes in this country especially, but from the world of cycling as well, will be on Bradley Wiggins' attempt come June. Now, we speak about the start, how important it is. We speak about aerodynamistry. We heard Alex Dowsett speaking about that in the interview that we aired just before he got underway. But until you're out there on the track, and you can practice as much as you want, until you're there in front of the crowd and that specific record attempt, you don't really know how you're going to feel, do you?
No, I mean, you can do as much in training as possible, and obviously what you need to do, what Alex is aiming to do, it's got to be a controlled effort. You don't want to start too fast too soon. I mean, that's what's happened with one of the last people to go for the attempt, Jack Bowbridge. He just set out too quick too soon, and even though he's probably got better pedigree on the track than Alex, being a two-time world individual pursuit champion, he just started too fast and he really paid for it, and you could see his speed really drop off in the closing stages. So he went about it the wrong way. So from Alex's point of view, he will have learnt a lot from that, and he knows that he's really got to control his pace. He's got to follow the instructions that he's getting from his coach at the side of the track, making sure he keeps to a very rigid and strict schedule.
You mentioned his Giro d'Italia time trial win over a similar sort of a distance as he'll be aiming to do today. He did that in 1 hour and 16 minutes. Of course, the undulations in the course were the contributing factor to the time it took there. Another fascinating thing, though, that not only Alex Dowsett's talked about, but you also heard Chris Boardman speaking about this before the attempt being made today, is the fact that the difference in doing this hour attempt as compared to when you're attempting to do a time trial is there is no respite when you're doing the hour attempt.
I mean, on the track, it's just you out there on your own. So you've got to have total concentration. You've got to focus 100% on the job in hand. Unlike when you're riding on the road, you're riding a time trial. You're talking about back to the Giro d'Italia time trial, which you won in 2013. Of course, you're going over different terrain, you're coming to different obstacles, different junctions in the road, so it's breaking up that routine and breaking up your mental concentration, whereas in the hour record on the track, it's just you against the clock, and it's that constant pressure. And of course, there's a certain amount of G-force that's been applied every time you're going into that banking as well, so it really does tell on the body.
And the average wattage that you're using is 400 as you're going around, but as we heard also when we were listening to Simon Smart talking about all of the testing that they were doing in the wind tunnels, it's up to sort of 85-90% of the wattage burn is coming from your resistance as you go round, as you were talking about there. And so how do you set about basically getting the perfect kit? Is it vital to have the backing that Alex has got here from a big team like Movistar?
I mean, obviously they play a crucial part, because you can have an extremely aerodynamic position, but you're not going to be able to produce the power, because if you're too low, you're too far stretched out. That's going to work against you. So it's finding a fine balance of an aerodynamic position, but in a position which you can maintain for an hour, and a position where you can produce the maximum power. So it's a lot of adjustment, lots of tweaks, and it's just fractions here and there which makes the difference. So that's why you need the backup and the support. And he's been able to go and do a lot of wind tunnel testing. He's been able to do a lot of research with Endura, the clothing company, as well, and obviously the bike manufacturer. So they're all playing their part.
As we saw there, he's getting his lap speed up north of 51 kilometers an hour, which is building well in the opening 5 minutes here, but plenty of time to come. Now, marathon runners talk about hitting the wall. Alex Dowsett, talking about this hour attempt, said it's around I think the 18-mile mark that riders start to hit the wall in the velodrome. It's around 28.8 kilometers. Would you go along with that? Do you think that's the sort of the region, or is it going to be later on for him?
I think it's going to be later on for him. I mean, I think the first 15-20 minutes is almost going to be a breeze for him. I think the next 20 minutes up to 40 minutes, I think he's still going to be able to control. And it's going to be, it's not going to hurt too much. The lactate acid's not going to be building up too much. He's not going to be so uncomfortable from that fixed, rigid position. But it's going to be in that last 15-20 minutes where it's really going to start hurting, and where psychologically you're really good to be on top of your game, and you've got to be riding as low down the track as possible to covering a shorter distance, and you've really got to focus on the job in hand. So you're near, you're sort of ticking off the laps one by one, knowing that it's going to hurt the further the distance goes.
Now, you were once going to attempt to do this yourself, I think I'm right in thinking, but your attempt got affected by an injury. But training-wise, how far along the training had you got when you were going to attempt?
I mean, I was planning to go for the record in 1992. Like Alex Dowsett, in the January, I had an accident. I broke my hip, and it set me back quite a while, and so I curtailed my plans to go for the hour record. But I've done a lot of physiological testing, and I think I was in the right position. I was planning to go and base myself in Colorado, train in Colorado, where I won a world title in the 5-kilometer pursuit. Do perhaps 3 weeks of acclimatization there, and then go on up to Mexico City and go for the hour record there. Now, when I was planning to go for the record, that would have been the record which existed of Francesco Moser, and I would have had the advantage of using the tri-bars, which Alex is using there, which no other rider had attempted the record with. So aerodynamics had moved on. Unfortunately, I didn't get round to going for it, but and that hadn't stopped the success of the British riders. We've seen Chris Baldwin with his success. We've seen Yvonne McGregor in the women's hour record, and of course, we've seen how the Great Britain team have really benefited from having this Manchester velodrome where Alex is now. This was the first indoor velodrome in the UK, opened in 1994. Fantastic facility, been used for the World Championship on 3 previous occasions, and we're all hoping that Alex is going to set a new hour record.
Currently just outside of the record pace, but as I said, he's building towards it at the moment, and that's 29 laps have been completed, so he's now on lap 31. Lap 30, first time he goes over 52 kilometers an hour, so continuing that build of pace, and he's been going for just under 9 minutes. Well, that goes noses over 9 minutes now. He spoke about just the importance of the crowd. Dame Sarah Story attempted the record here and failed, and she said that that was something to do with the atmosphere and the heat, which impacted the aerodynamistry that she was going for. Is that something again that you plan for? Can you plan for what the heat's going to be like in a building where you've got a live audience and of varying numbers?
Well, I mean, you can plan to a certain extent to the temperature in the track. The ideal temperature for attempting a record for an hour is going to be 25, 26 degrees. But what you can't control is actual atmospheric pressure, because as much as we can't control the weather. And so what's happening outside is to a certain extent out of your hands. But you can be very much in control of most things that you're going to have to be up against.
Now, you mentioned the fact that this is a wonderful venue. It wasn't Alex Dowsett's first choice when his original record was going to be attempted. It was going to be at the 27th of February. It was going to be at the Lee Valley velodrome, which is where Bradley Wiggins is going to attempt his record on the 7th of June. However, as you will have seen if you watched the original interview at the start of the broadcast here, that Alex Dowsett said that he's found Manchester very much more accommodating. However, the surprise for me perhaps is that you aren't having more people make the attempt at altitude.
I mean, obviously altitude can be very advantageous, and throughout the years lots of people have gone for the record in altitude. In Mexico City has been one of the most favourites. I mean, of course, Francesco Moser, he set the record, which was stood from Eddie Merckx, which he set in 1972, and Moser went for it in 1984.
That will be about 15 minutes. Yeah, a bit less than 13
coming round now to complete the first 10 kilometres of the race. Alex Dowsett having now completed
hopefully
40
I'll
laps
be
as he comes around to the
still
line.
thinking I'm on top of things. You know, things I'm still on pace. I've been very disciplined with my first 10k, and I'm in a good place to carry on. So hopefully it's not hurting too much yet. I guess I'll be focused on pedalling smoothly, holding the black line around the banking as well, because if you deviate off it, that's extra distance that you're doing that's not recorded. So you have to keep on the black line as much as possible, and concentrating on keeping as aerodynamic position as possible on the bike, and just, I guess, trying to relax a bit. In training I've been getting quite tense and that's tiring, so yeah, just trying to relax somewhat.
Well, there, Alex Dowsett speaking about what he expected to have achieved in those first 10 kilometres. Do you think he'll be relatively happy at this stage?
I think it's right. It's going exactly to plan at the moment, and he's riding. It's a very controlled effort, and he's doing exactly what he needs to do. But of course, it's very early stages. Now, you mentioned before about riding at altitude, and of course the record which was set by Eddie Merckx, 1972, and then by Francesco Moser, they were set on open air track, so you can't control the weather. The women's record, which is held by Leontine Zeilard van Moorsel, and she set that record 1st of October 2003. That was on a 333 1/3 metre open air track, and I was heavily involved. I was one of the technical advisors to her, and that record still stands, and that was 46.065 kilometres per hour.
So how long do people spend going around and looking for the venue? Because just looking back through history, when you have the likes of Henri de Grange setting the first recognised time for this discipline, he was doing it at the Buffalo Velodrome in Paris, and that was the velodrome that everyone really chose to go for the record thereafter. And you had the likes of Lucien Petit-Breton held the record for a while, Oscar Egg, Marcel Berthet, all of these people were doing it at that same velodrome. Then it shifted to the Velodromo Vignorelli in Milan, and that was where the records were set. And then there's one record in Rome by Ferdy Brack before Ollie Ritter went to Mexico City, and then Eddie Merckx went to Mexico City, and then you had Chris Boardman coming back to Manchester. So Manchester was used. You had Andrei Sasenko getting the record in Moscow, but that has a number of question marks, I think, surrounding the validity of that record. And then since then we've had record attempts made in Switzerland and in Melbourne, and now back in Manchester. They're going to be going to Lee Valley as well, and just the one attempt by Thomas Dekker made at altitude in Mexico City. But I mean, is it prestige, which is the reason, as we just move down to hear from Phil Dowsett, Alex's dad.
Not very well. It's difficult because there's a lot of adrenaline and there's nowhere to go because we're standing still. Usually if you're playing football or racing cars, on a bike, you've got the adrenaline and it's got somewhere to go. We're standing here and it's all pumping, and so I don't feel very well, no.
Just how much hard work and preparation has he put in ahead of today?
I've never seen Alex commit like he has to this before Christmas. He went away at Christmas on his own to Mallorca, sat in a hotel on his own, and I've never seen him commit like that before. It was taken away from him, but he's back. So yeah, his level of commitment is something I've not seen before.
And how's he looking at this point to you out there on the boards?
Well, I'm watching Steve for the ups and the downs. At the moment, they've got a schedule, he must stick to it. And he's had a few +1s and a few +2s. Got to get him back, because you know the last 10, 15 minutes are the unknown area. You're going into unknown territory, because like a marathon, they never go and run the 26 miles, and they've not actually done the hour, because unless he's got a number on his back, you're not going to do it. So the last 10, 15 minutes, no matter where he is, are crucial, because if you fall apart, that's it. Bobridge fell apart, Rowan Dennis didn't. Perfect.
Well, interesting words there from Alex Dowsett's father. His mum hasn't been able to make it. She's on a cruise in Norway at the moment, but Alex Dowsett said that was perfectly acceptable because of the change of date and the fact that he's pretty much had to put several family events on hold, or they have put several family events on hold in the past due to different training camps and different events that he's been competing in. So his cycling career has taken priority amongst the family in the past, and he didn't want his mum to lose out on the money that she'd spent on the cruise already. His dad there speaking about the fact that he's having a few +1s and +2s, and you can see that reflected in the amount that he's currently clocking outside that record. How much of a concern is that going to be at this stage? Because it's early on, but it's all about rhythm.
It's not going to be a concern at the moment. I mean, as he comes around to complete 60 laps, he'll have covered 15 kilometres. The record's still very much within his grasp. It's still a very smooth and very controlled ride, and I think it's going very much to plan so far.
Very interesting words there from his dad again, which I was going to ask you about, was do you attempt the full hour before you go for the record, or do you, like a marathon runner, run 22 miles, let's say, rather than running the 26? And it seems that the answer's already been made for me, but I mean, would you, if you've been going for the record, would you have wanted to do an hour before?
Maybe not quite the full hour, and so I think you tend to go just under the distance, hoping that on the day the extra adrenaline, the motivation that you've got, and with the crowd and the support, that's going to help carry you for those extra laps that you need to do.
Just to return to the point that I was talking about before we had that interview from Alex Dowsett's dad, the importance of the venue and how much time is invested by the team in looking at which venue you're going to use.
Well, I mean, a lot of time, a lot of planning goes into a record attempt at this level, and you'd look at the venue. I mean, the one good thing about the indoor tracks and racing, where most of the recent record attempts have been on the 250-metre track, obviously it's that much more easier to get the right conditions, to get the right temperature. You're in a controlled environment. You haven't got to worry about the outdoor track like in Mexico, where the weather's going to play such a crucial part. So we know that Manchester's a superb track. We know that world records have been set here previously, and you know, it's one of the fastest tracks in the world. So he's in the right place. Let's just hope it's at the right time. And he looks very focused. Listening to him speak in some of the interviews, he's left nothing to chance. He's got some great backup, great support. The other good thing is that his pro tour team, Movistar, they've had a great season so far, and so that means that the riders and the team are going to be motivated. They're going to be full of confidence, and he will feed off that as well. I mean, only last week Alejandro Valverde won the Flèche Wallonne, and he won Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and so that's going to lift the morale of everyone connected with the team, sponsors and riders, and all the support staff.
Yeah, they certainly are having a very good season so far. This would be the cherry on the early season cake, so to speak, as Alex Dowsett approaches the end of 70 laps now, and he's been going for just under 20 minutes. As far as the record has gone, as I was saying, you go back and you look at the list of riders who have held this record, and it's no wonder. I remember Jens Vogt was speaking about going for the hour record when he was on his final Tour de France last year, and just saying that you look down that list of riders who have etched their name into history for picking up the hour record, and it's something that you want to be a part of. And he said it doesn't matter how long you are the record holder, once your name's there, no one can take it away from you, even if your record's beaten. And he didn't hold the record for very long. It was 42 days, I think. But I wouldn't be surprised, I don't know what you think about this, if he ends up being the oldest man to hold the record.
Well, I mean, there's a very good chance. I mean, Jens is 43 years young, and it was amazing. What a great way to go out and retire. His final race, or his final ride as a professional, the world hour record in Grenchen in Switzerland, and he set a new standard, a new world record. I mean, fantastic way to end your career, and it was very fitting for a rider who's very popular with cycling fans all over the world, and he really has opened up the jack-in-the-box, because we've seen so much interest since Jens went for it.
And it's great because it takes me back to my youth, because I remember the Abri-Boardman battle for this record that was going on. It was one of those great duels at that particular time, and you were hearing about it every year, and there were different attempts being made all the time, and it sort of fell out of favour. I mean, a lot to do with the fact of the change in rules and what you could and you couldn't do, and whether you were getting the hour record or the best human effort. And now that they've unified those attempts, and we see it together, but just how important is it going to be that riders are able to use different forms of aerodynamistry that they weren't before, with the disc wheels and things like that? And do you agree that they've moved forward with the time, so to speak?
Well, I mean, they've moved forward with the times now, and so that the bikes and all the equipment is the same as what's allowed in the World Championships and in the Olympic Games. So there's some standardisation there. So all the riders have rules which they have to adhere to. So, for example, you know, Bradley's going to be going for it in a month's time, and he'll be riding on the similar sort of bike to the same rules and regulations as Alex. And it's great. We had in the 90s, we had the Aubry and the Bourbon battles, and now we've got the Dowsett and the Wiggins battle.
Well, we heard what Alex Dowsett's expectations were at the 10-kilometre mark. Now we're going to hear what he expected to be achieving at around the 20-kilometre mark.
After 20k, so we're approaching the halfway mark. Yeah, about, I guess that'll be sort of 23 minutes in. Similar to 10k, I'm hoping, just still chipping away, like settled into a really nice rhythm, and just it'll be a bit of a waiting game. So I'll be waiting to finish the first half an hour, 40 minutes, to then have a proper assessment of how I'm feeling, and then where to start going from there.
Number on the right in red, which we keep on catching a glimpse of, keeps on sliding up. He's arrived at the 20-kilometre mark in pretty much the time that he expected, around 23 minutes. Does that mean that the whole plan was built around a very solid push towards the end, or is this going just sliding a little bit behind?
No, I think it's still very much within Alex's capabilities. I think he's riding a very smooth and controlled ride. He's riding and holding that black line at the bottom of the track, very well. And I mean, that is the key. I mean, Thomas Dekker, the Dutch roadman who went for the record in Mexico on the 25th of February this year, he hasn't got as much background on the track as Alex anywhere near, and he missed out on the record by 270 metres. and I'm sure that itself was the fact that he wasn't holding the line. He was wandering up the track so much. So Alex is doing a very good job, very smooth, and I think it's still well within his capabilities.
Well within his capabilities, but he has some time to make up on Rohan Dennis's time, as we saw there, just around 6 seconds down on Dennis's time at the same stage. However, every rider will approach this with a different mentality, with a different plan, and as a consequence you can't read too much into exactly what Rohan Dennis was doing at the same occasion, because some riders go out slightly quicker than others and finish stronger than others, as we saw in Jack Burbridge's case, who was going off like an absolute train but didn't manage to sustain it when he came up towards the end. So 25 minutes has been completed by Alex Dowsett, and he's still looking very smooth out there and just managing to hold things. But the number on your right, as I was saying, is the difference between Rohan Dennis, who is the current record holder, at the same stage when he made his attempt with the BMC team. That one on the 8th of February of this year in Switzerland.
I think Rohan Dennis, his attempt, that happened early this year after he'd ridden in the Tour Down Under and won the Tour Down Under. That would have given him a tremendous boost. I think Alex is going to use the motivation from the disappointment of not being able to go for the record early in the year when he wanted to, and I think that could be the driving factor. Now, Rohan Dennis, he changed teams last year mid-season, and he moved from Garmin to BMC, and I think that move and going back working under the coach of Alan Piper, I think that's what's seen him raise his game and ride to a different level. Now, Alex rides for Movistar. They've got fantastic technical and backup support. The general manager of the Movistar team is Eusebio Onzue. He's one of the most experienced director sportives in the peloton. He's helped guide 7 Tour de France winners, and of course he was behind the man Miguel Indurain when he set the record back in Bordeaux. So he's got a lot of support behind him, and that's going to be key.
Plenty of pedigree behind him, plenty of support, and they've invested plenty of time and money in this attempt as well. And the crowd, of course, will play their own part, and they'll just be concerned if they are looking at the difference between Alex Dowsett's time and the time of Rohan Dennis. But still, so early on in this attempt, relatively, we're not even at the halfway stage, there's no need to start pressing any panic buttons. Another thing, another huge motivational part for Alex Dowsett was, of course, riding for his charity, well, the charity that he fronts, which is called Little Bleeders, which is to help children with haemophilia, and that's an affliction that affects Alex Dowsett himself, and one of the very few first-class athletes really to suffer from haemophilia. I saw a very amusing interview with him where he was talking about the decision to get involved in cycling. He tried plenty of other sports at the stage, and he just turned around and came back from a ride with his dad and went and told his haemophilia doctors that he was going to do road cycling, and they said, well, of course we'd prefer you to be doing chess, but at the end of the day, it's not the worst sport that you could perhaps be partaking in. It's not a contact sport, although when you see riders take a spill on the road or in a velodrome, you wouldn't necessarily say that it wasn't a contact sport. Over lap 100, and once again, we saw just a moment ago that the difference, and now 8 seconds behind Rohan Dennis at this halfway stage, as we approach the halfway stage anyway. Over 100 laps then from Alex Dowsett, and he's still maintaining a really good rhythm out there, but just a little bit under as far as the speed that he needs to break the record.
I mean, the one good thing that Alex has got is the last time he went head-to-head with the record holder, Rohan Dennis, was in a time trial, was in the Commonwealth Games back in Glasgow last August, and Alex came out the winner, and that was very close, but he won it by 9 seconds. Now, He'll be well aware of that. He knows that that record's still within his reach. He won't be panicking. He knows he's coming around, a half an hour to go, and it's still within his hands. And I think he knows it's going to be a fight all the way to the line, and I think he's totally committed. He's more motivated and better prepared than he probably has been ever in his life.
Well, he's putting together a very smooth performance so far. Faces in the crowd, though, do tell their own tale, because there are looks of concern out there rather than the deafening noises of support that perhaps are slightly more necessary.
Now, Alex would have really gone to town in the planning and the preparation. The work that he's done with Endura for the clothing to make sure that it was right. And they've been working with the team for the past few years, and they've made sure it's the most aerodynamic fit that it could be. And of course the bike that he's riding, the Canyon, the Speed Max, and the equipment he's using with the Campagnolo chain set and with the Campagnolo disc wheels, and the tyres he's using. He'll be riding Continental 22mm Sonda class tyres, and they will be pumped up probably to around 170 pounds per square inch.
I was going to go into slightly more detail about the equipment that he's using and that he's wearing as well. Endura, they've enlisted the help of Simon Smart, who we heard from earlier. They got the Mercedes AMG F1 wind tunnel to fine-tune all of that clothing, and Campagnolo creating a new pista wheel set, stating that it's lighter and stiffer than the previous model, using Colt ceramic bearings as well. And as you heard about the tubes as well from Tony, so it is the best possible equipment that he could expect to make this record attempt.
Well, that's right. He would have really done his homework, and great to see that a British company is really backing him. Endura from Livingston in Scotland, and they're playing a vital role. And at the end of the day, that could make the final difference, because it's going to be so close.
Going to be close. Once again, that difference between Alex Dowsett's attempt and that of the current record holder, Rowan Dennis, edging towards 10 seconds. And that is in the negative, but at the same time, there is still plenty of time to go. 28 minutes for Alex Dowsett to bring it in, but 8 more minutes, and then he starts to enter the unknown. Heard about Bradley Wiggins has been training in 20-minute sets, averaging at a speed of 55 kilometers an hour. And Alex Dowsett's been really sure of himself in not becoming involved in talking about that Wiggins challenge. He's just been focusing on his own challenge and staying well away from the numbers that are being churned out and suggested that Bradley Wiggins could go for. But do you think it's a distraction, or is it something that helps you train when someone else is being almost more talked up than you are?
Well, you know that Bradley's a living legend, and you know that Bradley will be going for that hour record, and he could well put it beyond his reach, but he's got his timing right. He's going for it ahead of Bradley, and all he wants to do is beat the existing record. Now, if he beats it by 1 meter, that's great. 100 meters, that's even better. If he beats it by a kilometer, fantastic. But he knows exactly what he's got to do, and that's the main thing, just making sure that hopefully he breaks that record today. And what Bradley does come June the 7th, that's not going to play too much on his mind.
Couple of laps there, clocking at over 52.5 kilometers an hour, and you've seen the difference between Rowan Dennis's record and the equivalent time that he was on come down for the first time in a long time as Alex Dowsett's concerned, and now down to just 8.146 seconds the difference. And when you consider that a few moments ago it was edging up towards 9.5 seconds, you can hear the roar in the crowd as they respond and see Alex Dowsett really begin to eat into the time difference.
Yeah, so 30k, we've broken the back of it, but probably the hardest section still to go. 30k, that's about 19 miles. That'll be 35 minutes in, I guess. Then Yeah, I'd imagine it'll be biting. I mean, I know some of the boys, Decker had a rough patch between 30 and 40 minutes, so maybe I'll have a rough patch, hopefully not. Hopefully now will be the time that I'm starting to think, okay, Alex, how are we feeling? Where are we at? Like, yeah, my coach calls it my RPE, my rate of perceived exertion, on a scale of 1 to 10. If I'm at a 10, then we just want to continue the pace that we have, and we're looking at breaking record by meters rather than laps. If then I'm feeling good, so if it's an 8 or a 7 or a 6, then I'm like, okay, then maybe we can start thinking about lifting this a bit. So it'd only be a small amount, something like a 1/10 of a second a lap will start going above pace, just to start building up a bank of time added to Rowan's pace. Yeah, that would be a nice scenario, and a lovely dreamland scenario. I'm still cruising along nice and easy, and I think, okay, let's go for it and really try and put this out of reach.
Well, he's not on the latter pace set at the moment of putting the record out of reach, but he is very much on a pace at the moment where he is starting to shave 1/10 of a second off the time set by Rowan Dennis. And as you can see, even though he's up at 8.108 over the time that Dennis rode at 30 kilometres, he has started to bring that down, because it had gone out to 9.5 seconds, as I was saying just before we heard from Alex Dowsett there. So as part of the plan here, he's going to have people just telling him, you just need to step it up. As you can see, once again, that time coming down. Now, presumably, this means that he's feeling pretty good.
Looks like he's feeling good, and looks like it's all under control at the moment. And I mean, we're talking fractions of a second here. I mean, Alex will be aiming, knows he's got to do 52.5 kilometres to break that record. 210 laps, he needs to average 17.14 seconds for a lap. Now, if he's going to reach 53 kilometres an hour, he's only got to average just 16.98 seconds a lap, but that's going to make the difference of that 500 metres. So it's not a huge amount. That's why it's really got to be controlled, and concentration is key. Doesn't want to let his mind wander. Doesn't want to worry what's happening amongst the crowd. Just focus and think about what he's got to do. And it looks like he's very much in control at the moment, John.
Very much in control, and that speed pushed up again, 52.611 kilometres an hour on lap number 130. So Alex Dowsett is continuing to increase the pace, and he's continuing to shave off the time, and he's doing it slowly, but he's also doing it in a very measured way, and his rhythm's still looking fantastic out there at the moment as we approach the 40-minute mark, which is a real line in the sand moment for riders when they're taking on the hour record as they enter that final 20 minutes. They're 20 minutes where, well, depending on how they feel, they'll know whether they can take on the record or not.
I mean, he's riding a very controlled, smooth position, still very much aerodynamic. There's no rocking or rolling. Just sat in that saddle, not moving about, and ideally just doing exactly what he needs to do, and still very much in his hands how far he goes.
Chris Boardman, when he set the record, which is still recognised as the best human effort, but not currently involved in the hour record time, riding in the Superman post, 56.375 kilometres at the Manchester Velodrome back on the 6th of September 1996. Speaking to you beforehand, he was saying, is that just a slight clip of one of those inner ring sides there? Just, is that a first sign of a little bit of loss of control?
No, it's nothing to worry about. So that's not going to affect his ride at all. I mean, you were talking about Chris there. I remember I was being there and I was watching the racing, and fantastic how far Chris went in that Superman position. Fantastic day, and I was very young myself then, back in 1996. But Chris, that was an incredible distance. And then Chris came back and then set the record again in the orthodox position in 2000. And Chris had a fantastic career, and obviously the achievements which he made on the track, they're what made him really stand out. That together with his Tour de France and with his prologue victories, and a great career. And he'd be only delighted that other British riders are now back attempting the hour record.
They are back attempting the hour record. Another one of those little signs saying Manchester on the inside of the track, clipped by Alex Dowsett as he went round, but it doesn't seem to be affecting his overall speed, which is preserving itself up around 52.65 kilometres an hour. And his time down to just 6.5 seconds down on Rowan Dennis's at the same point.
I mean, those are actually sponges to stop you riding too low on the track. You have to keep to the black line. You can't go off onto the blue on the inside because you're covering a shorter distance. That's known as the Côte d'Azur. And so you've got to stay above those sponges. In the old days, they used to be sandbags, so when you hit one, they could almost throw you off the bike. Whereas now, times have moved on, and they're sponges, so much safer for the rider. Alex just getting out the saddle there for the first time. He comes around to complete 40 minutes of his hour. Now he knows that this is when the pain is going to start hurting.
Now, we're very interested to hear his chat with an unknown individual who came up and just wanted to talk to him about the record and talk to him about Graham Abbree and Chris Boardman's books and the way they describe this hour attempt and the pain that you go through, and the fact that he actually had to tell him to be quiet after a while because he just didn't want to know any more about the pain. It is this slightly unknown territory that he steps into here in the final 20 minutes. 143 laps completed, and he's still holding it around 6.48 seconds down on Rowan Dennis. But if he can keep the pace and keep this really good rhythm that we've seen from him so far, just popping out of the seat on the one occasion, then it is going to be very close indeed.
How are you seeing Alex perform today?
Bueno, él realmente lo está haciendo muy bien. Más o menos la idea que teníamos de tiempos a realizar, él está estabilizado, y si es capaz de mantener este nivel de tiempo de 17 segundos, una décima, estaría en tiempos de batir el récord.
Gracias, thank you.
Unfortunately, we don't have a translation of it, so I won't be able to tell you what he was saying, but still with 18.5 minutes to go here. 52.679 kilometres an hour. It's still increasing the pace for Alex Dowsett out there, so he's managing to push towards ever closer to the Rowan Dennis mark.
Looked like you've been told there just to smooth it out, don't get carried away, you're still in control, and it's still within your grasp. Don't panic. Got to be a smooth, controlled effort, and he's riding in an excellent position there, not moving around on the bike, staying very still, very rigid, and he knows that it's still within his grasp.
Do you think that at a moment when he came out of the seat would have slightly worried his team? Would they have been thinking, we need to get out the message to him just to calm down a little bit, that he doesn't need to worry that much at this stage?
No, I mean, Alex just needed there to relieve the pressure and just needed to stretch himself, and that was perfectly okay. So nothing for either Alex or the team to worry about. You're in that fixed position, and of course, when you're riding on fixed wheel as he is, just a single fixed wheel, the pressure on your hamstrings and on your glutes is massive, and then with the G-force from the banking as well, so it begins to hurt, and there's nothing wrong with getting out and just stretching yourself, and it can make things just that little bit more comfortable.
Lap 152 is completed. Alex Dowsett is still managing to maintain a really good rhythm out there. 6.620. That's the time that he is outside of the hour record currently held by Rowan Dennis at the equivalent point when Dennis went for his record back in February of this year. Very much into the unknown for Alex Dowsett here.
I mean, Alex would have spent a lot of time training on this Manchester track over the years when he was based with the British Olympic Academy and with the Olympic programme, and so this is nothing new to him. We know that he's been spending a lot of time training and racing at the Lee Valley Velo Park, the home for the 2012 Olympics. He's been taking part in their track leagues. So he is very accustomed to spending a lot of time on the Manchester Velodrome, which is the National Cycling Centre.
Certainly be huge amounts of experience riding here. It means he won't be getting phased by the task that lies ahead of him here, as we hear what he expected to have achieved by this 40k mark.
40k, we're getting into the business end of it. 40k, we've got 12k to go. That's 12k is 48, so we're at 50 laps to go, more or less, which is a nice milestone. You know, last quarter, we've got it will be hurting by now. Not necessarily, I mean, the legs will be hurting, but we're talking like where I'm sitting, my shoulders holding me up on the bankings will be hurting, just trying to maintain that position. You can't drink in it, so my mouth will be dry. I'll be warm, hot, just all really quite unpleasant really, but I will still be trying, and as tiredness sets in, it becomes more difficult to hold the black line in the banking, so that's where I've got to really start trying to concentrate just on staying as low as possible in the bankings. So that's, everything's going to be screaming a bit, but then I've got to think, you know, where am I now? Can I maintain this to the finish? Can I actually squeeze a little bit more, or should we, if I've got a buffer, should I come off a little bit to then make sure I can not drop off a lot to the finish? So it will be a constant assessing where I'm at, what I can do, and what would be the best plan of attack for the finish.
Everything has been thought about. He has planned this absolutely meticulously, and at present, with the rhythm that he is producing and the reduction in speed, once again just being told to keep it level, keep it calm. He's not needing to push too hard yet. Everything augurs very well for Alex Dowsett as long as he's feeling fresh, and although he's showing just a few signs of beginning to hurt out there, that would be expected at this stage, and he knows all he's got to do is keep on going for that last 13 minutes now.
I mean, he's just completed over 41 kilometres now, and still very much in control. And yes, it will be hurting, but he knows this is his date with destiny, and this is going to be Dowsett's day. And let's hope that he's going to continue this progress, and he's going to become the new record holder. It's going to be very, very close.
As you can see, there's the 40-kilometre mark. Alex Dowsett, 45 minutes, 33.1 seconds. Rowan Dennis was 45 minutes, 26.8 seconds. But that is closer than it was at the 30-kilometre point. It's closer than it was at the 20-kilometre point as well. And Alex Dowsett set out with a plan and a rhythm, and at the moment he's managing to execute it really well, down to just 5.5 seconds between them as we enter lap number 169, and he's still preserving that speed up at 52.683 kilometers an hour, just continually winding it up, and it shaves time off on each revolution and every single lap that he's doing here at the Manchester Velodrome. He's picking up pace and he's taking off time.
And he's always stayed within range of that record, so there's been no panic. It's always been very close. You see, for the first time it's kind of under 5 seconds, so he knows exactly what he needs to do. He'll be getting the information from his coach at the side of the track there, and so it's got to be a real controlled, sustained effort, and it looks like he's carrying it off exactly as he needs to do.
Message passed on to him there that he has managed to take it under 5 seconds, just needs to shave another 1/10 of a second off. They're just taking it down in small increments of time at the moment. Alex Dowsett's still looking really, really measured. He's still looking as though he's in a perfect position. He's still looking as though he's very, very calm out there, in spite of the fact that he has now entered what's very close to being the final 10 minutes of this hour record, and the roar at the Manchester Velodrome just starting to increase in volume.
That's right. I mean, he'll be feeding off the supporters at the side of the track, the information that he's getting, and obviously off the public as well. You can hear the noise there increasing. He knows as he comes around with just over 10.5 minutes to go, He knows exactly what he needs to do. But he's got to be a smooth, controlled effort. Don't panic yet. It's still within his hands, this record.
I mean, you go back, it's only in 2005 that this record was still under 50 kilometres as far as the UCI regulations for the hour record were concerned. So the fact that how far it has come forward since the renewed interest came into it, and we saw Jens Vogt manage to get the title and get the record and take it over 51 kilometres on that occasion. And look now, Alex Dowsett is shaving off time, shaving off a second on that last little time split that we have, up to 52.706 kilometres an hour, and the volume continues to rise here in Manchester as they begin to, I think, believe in the fact that they are going to witness something very special indeed.
I mean, they believe, all of Alex, movie star personnel, all of his personal coaches there, they'll all be Mark Walker, his one-to-one coach. Mark Walker also works with Helen Wyman, the former European cyclocross champion and British cyclocross champion, the reigning star. They know what they've got to do, and he's just got to stay focused, and he knows that he can set sporting history here at Manchester today, and he's not going to let it go.
Well, look at the time that he's taken off, and obviously this is a part of the race that Rowan Dennis perhaps had his little wobble, because Alex Dowsett is really finding power and strength, and he's managed to get down to within touching distance, and now goes under for the first time in this hour. He dips underneath the hour record time, and he's taken 7/10 off it, and if he can maintain this pace and this rhythm right the way into the finish, well, we heard him talking about not just beating it by a matter of meters, but by beating it by a matter of laps. That perhaps is a little out of his reach, but he could certainly put a real dent in the record.
Well, I mean, he could, and we know, he knows he's got to ride exactly to schedule. He's got to follow the instructions he's getting from his coaches at the side of the track. He doesn't want to do what Jack Bowbridge did, was to go out too fast and pay for it later on in the closing stages. And it's going exactly to plan at the moment, John.
Out of his seat once again, just to have another stretch onto lap number 183. His speed on that last lap, 52.766. He's continuing to build up here and really accelerate through every single lap of the velodrome at present, and he's up to 3 seconds inside our record time.
We think that Alex is riding the gear of 108 inches, 56.14. That big chain ring. In terms of pursuing, the big chain ring gives you a little bit more leverage, and so the riders who ride the time trials, ride the pursuits, they like to use the bigger chain ring rather than a smaller chain ring and a smaller sprocket at the back. And he still looks in control. Yes, it's starting to hurt, but he's ahead of the schedule now, and he knows it's. He can see that those laps are being ticked off, are being clocked off.
When you're at this point of a race, any form of race, when the pain is at its optimum, and you really internally something screaming inside you to stop, how important is it to be in front of a home crowd?
Well, that's going to make a huge difference, and then also the experience that Alex has got of having spent so much time in Manchester. He knows now that he's within 25 laps of finishing his hour record. He knows that he's done 25 laps time and time again. He'll have done thousands of laps at Manchester. Never in the closing stage of an hour record, but just the time that he's spent there, knowing that he's ahead of the record, that's going to be a tremendous boost to his morale.
Now, how hard is it to control your adrenaline when you're in this position? And you've looked up at the clock, you know how long's left, you know that you're inside the record pace, but he's still increasing in speed. I mean, is that something that they're going to be just trying to get him to calm down, or is it just going to be, you just go now?
I mean, they don't want him to just go now, because he's still got over 6 minutes to go. And so if you start really lifting it, you can pay for it. It's only in the last couple of minutes when he wants to really let rip. So he's still got to be sensible, not get too carried away, but it's all going to plan at the moment.
All going to plan, almost 10 seconds inside Rowan Dennis's record time. Rowan Dennis, of course, who set that record of 52.491 kilometres. It was over 600 metres better than the previous mark that had been set by Matti Brandl of Austria back on the 30th of October last year. Rowan Dennis setting it in Gretchen at the Velodrome Suisse in Switzerland. Alex Dowsett coming to Manchester, a track that he used to train on as a youngster when he was a neo-pro. He trained in Manchester, and he's come back here after having to change venues, wanted to compete at the Lee Valley Velodrome on the 27th of February, broke his collarbone, had to put that record attempt back. It certainly meant that there's been more coverage of his attempt, there's been more media coverage, there's been more people following him, there's been more interviews, there's been more invested in the attempt, and as a consequence, Alex Dowsett looks as though he is rising to the occasion. Now 12.766 seconds inside the time of Rowan Dennis, and we're now inside the last 5 minutes of this hour record attempt.
Well, Alex is a man made for this. He started out as a time trialist, GHS, which is the schoolboy 10-mile championship, and a couple of years ago he set the 10-mile record of 17 minutes 20 seconds. So if anyone's going to do it, Alex is going to do it.
Well, let's hear what he expected at 50k.
For 50k, that's, yeah, so hopefully at least 2.5 kilometres to go. By this point, I'll know whether it'll be in 3 situations. Either I haven't broken the record, I have broken the record and I just need to maintain pace, or I'm still fighting tooth and nail with Rowan. If it's the first or the latter, it will be quite an easy last 8 laps, or 10 laps, sorry, because if you know you're up, then it's 10 laps, you can just give it gas and you'll be all right. If you know you're down, you're not going to pull. If you know you're down by a big deficit, you're not going to pull that back in 10 laps. If it's fighting tooth and nail, then it'll be an unpleasant 10 laps, but that'll be, yeah, just everything I've got left. So the line on the track might then start getting a little bit wavy.
It might be getting wavy, but at the moment, Alex Dowsett's showing no signs of losing his focus and losing his rhythm. He's increasing his speed up to 52.835 kilometers an hour, and he is within touching distance now of actually making it more than a lap's difference over the record held by Rowan Dennis of Australia. There we go, on to lap 200 completed, onto lap 201, and now within touching distance. It's the final 3 minutes, and Alex Dowsett, head down, knows he's just going for the line and going for his own place in history.
Well, he knows now that he's 1 lap ahead of the schedule. He won't be happy with that. He'll be trying to push it. He'll be trying to reach that 53 kilometre an hour. Let's hope he's still increasing his lead. Let's hope that he's not going to pay for it. It looks like it's been a very smooth, controlled ride. I can't see him losing it now, John. And I think we're going to have a new British hour record holder.
Well, absolutely fantastic for British cycling, and it'll be fantastic for the National Cycling Centre if the Cycling Centre is the place where it happens yet again, because this has been the birth in many ways of the resurgence in British cycling here in Manchester. And Alex Dowsett now calmly making his way round the track. He knows he's got just a couple of minutes to go. The crowd out of their seats, they're banging on the sideboards, they're putting the clappers together. 52.849 up to 52.855 kilometers an hour now, and he is inside those final 2 minutes and just coasting and looking as though there's no pain whatsoever, even though one knows that he will be in absolute agony by this stage.
I mean, it's been a fantastic controlled ride, and it's been a credit to his sponsors, credit to his sport, and it's only fitting that the record's going to be in his hands, and a shining example, another British sportsman, another British cyclist dominating the world of cycling, which is now more popular than it's ever been anywhere in the world.
And rightfully so, and the interest that has been poured into this hour record, it is held up there in great esteem in the sport as one of, if not the most prestigious awards in this sport. And Alex Dowsett is going to join a list that includes the likes of the aforementioned Lucien Petit-Breton, but also Fausto Coppi, Jacques Anquetil, Colli Baldini, Ferdy Brack, Olli Ritter, Eddie Merckx, of course. I mean, the list goes on. The legends of this sport have held the hour record at one time or another, and Alex Dowsett is going to join them. He's in to his final minute, and he is powering towards the finish line, looking to try and touch that 53-kilometre mark. I think he's going to just miss out on that, but look how much of a hole he's put into Rohan Dennis's record, and it has been a perfectly structured attempt here in Manchester by Alex Dowsett and the Movistar team.
Well, that's right, and look, he's really digging deep, trying to find that last little bit there. Incredible ride, and you can see that he's really fighting. He's actually lifting the pace there in the closing seconds. I mean, incredible, and great to see the crowd really rising to him, and a fantastic record that he's going to set here today in Manchester. And as you say, Manchester's been the rebirth of British cycling. Our first ever indoor velodrome opened in 1994.
There's the whistle. Alex Dowsett rides into the record books. Haven't got the official distance that he has managed to go, but as he warms down, a punch of the fist from Alex Dowsett as he realises what he's achieved. And everyone in his team, we heard from his dad earlier on, who said it was one of the most uncomfortable places he'd ever been, because all he could do was pace up and down or stand still with all of that adrenaline. Alex Dowsett was able to get the adrenaline out of his system, and he has been able here to ride into history, and no one will be able to take his name away from that long list of superstars who have held the hour record in cycling.
Well, I mean, one of Alex's heroes would have been Chris Boardman, and to go out and break a record that Chris held, although under different conditions, and then of course he'd be well aware of the success of Francesco Moser, the Italian great who held the hour record previously, and then of course probably the greatest cyclist ever in history, Eddie Merckx, to break his record. Let's just wait for the final distance, which has been sanctioned, but it looks like it's going to be a substantial increase there. Going to be about 450 metres he's broken the record by. Just to the final announcement.
Just missed out on getting to the 53-kilometre mark, but he's put certainly an extra 400 metres on the mark previously set by Rohan Dennis, which means that the record itself will have come forward by a full kilometre since Matthias Brandl broke it back on the 30th of October last year, and that is remarkable in itself.
Well, that's right, and it just shows you how competition raises its standard, and they'll have used different manufacturer bikes that have competed on different tracks, different clothing manufacturers. It just shows once a record is set, it just shows that it's there to be broken. You don't have to just sit back and respect it.
Well, Alex Dowsett pays respects to the machine that has propelled him to the record.
And one of the most delighted people who'll be watching this, although he'll have to watch it later on because he'll be competing in the Tour of Yorkshire at the moment with Bradley Wiggins. I was with Bradley on Tuesday, and he wishes Alex all the best, and he was hoping that Alex was going to go out and set the record, and he thought there'd be nothing more motivating for him than to go out there and try and break a world record that is held by a British rider, someone who rode in an England skin suit in the Commonwealth Games. Alex rode and won the gold medal in the time trial in Glasgow, and Bradley rode on the track in the team suit and won a silver medal.
Well, Rohan Dennis is going to be getting sick of the sight of him as well, because it was Rohan Dennis who he defeated in that Commonwealth Games time trial. And now Alex Dowsett has come out and broken Rohan Dennis's hour record.
He hasn't just broken it, he's smashed it by a considerable distance. He stayed within distance right until those closing stages, when he was then able to pull away, but a very controlled, measured effort. It just shows how you need to approach this ride in a very structured way.
Extraordinarily structured way as well. Down kilometers 10, 20, 30 and 40, and then just started to claw it in from 45, and well, it was a perfectly paced ride from Alex Dowsett, and he has managed to put some considerable distance onto the hour record.
Well, it was actually nice. I was expecting horrific, and it was just terrible. So. Do you want another go? Maybe after June 7th.
So you actually did the timing on there. You actually did 47 minutes 25, and it really looked like you were holding back for at least the first 40 minutes. And to be honest, there were a couple of people upstairs who were a little bit worried. Your coach, your back straight, was saying you were level all along, but and then you started going up and up and up, and you really creeped it in. Was there a little bit more in there?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's difficult to know. You know, the first 30 minutes was. I'm not gonna lie, it was easy.
Sorry, can I just check? The first 30 minutes was easy.
I think easy compared to what I expected. You know, the bike. Every time I've got on the bike, it's got faster. You know, there's been constant little modifications made. You know, some modifications that will only last an hour. So this is the first time we've run at a high temperature. So it's like I knew it was going to be easy early on. But I wasn't expecting that. But just had to stay disciplined because the last 10 minutes was a bit grippy.
Well, you went up on it massively. I mean, you were sort of 5 seconds up, and then you went all the way up to almost 30 seconds up on it. And compared to other people that we've seen getting off after the hour record, you're standing around holding the bike up looking for people, whereas other people were lifted off. So it looks to me like there was more in the tank, and later in the year we're going to have another crack, I hope.
Yeah, I hope so too. Yeah, I just want to say thank you. I've got a lot of thank yous to make. It's not been easy since November when we sort of started to think about the hour record, but yeah, I ran you through the whole process of it. I thought, you know, when the UCI changed the rules, it was basically I'll have a punt at that, or something different. And then
like you do, I'll just have a punt at an hour record.
And then we had our first training session, and 4 guys from Enduro came down, 4 or 5 guys from Canyon came across from Germany. Power to Max came across. Campagnolo developed some phenomenal wheels, and suddenly I realised what I'd let myself in for. And the time. And I just want to say thank you to all the crowds out here, because it's like the last 5 minutes. It was all you guys. I didn't have a lot to do with that, because it was with the noise the crowd was making. I was listening to you all the way as well. So
I'm glad one person was. Everybody else was ignoring me. But the noise upstairs, myself and Joe couldn't hear each other because the noise in here was absolutely phenomenal. And, if the crowd, I would say the crowd really did help you, because they cheered you on towards the end. And when you hit that level, you were level with the current record, they just went absolutely crazy. Were you aware? We could see some of the hand signals in the back straight. You were obviously aware what was going on.
I mean, the coaches actually gave me a plan which I didn't like that much before the race, and I think deep down I knew it was the right plan. That was basically with rider. I'm not very good at changing pace, so we knew we'd ride at an even pace, which would actually put me behind Rowan until 45 minutes, and I wasn't too keen on that. So I think it was about the halfway point that I went up, and I knew about it, and I knew that I had a lot left in the tank. I think I got a bit excited halfway and posted some quick times. And Steve, a massive thank you to Steve Collins. He's been I think we must have had about 30 or 40 hours of track time, and he's been there for every single session. He's an absolute gem.
Well, Tony, it's up on the screen. Look, it's up on the screen, Alex. A new official record, 52.937 kilometres. Alex Dowsett!
He came to ride the perfect hour, and, well, as you can see, by the reaction of the crowd here. He achieved the perfect hour for them, but he has also claimed the hour record, 52.937 kilometers, the new mark, and Alex Dowsett will hold that to at least the 7th of June when Bradley Wiggins will attempt to overhaul it.